Hello and welcome to my presentation about my career. We'll go through a couple of different slides. Some things we'll review are my own childhood experiences, Crumboltz is a learning theory, my career history, how I got there, why I was there, what I'm doing now, and the assessments that have kind of helped me along my way, and just some closing remarks about my future goals. So first is Crumboltz is a learning theory, and I just took a quote straight from the book. Each individual's unique learning experiences over the lifespan are most influential in the career choice process. I really do believe this to be true. I think that the things that we go through, the families that we come from, the places we live, the places we visit, all of these things speak into how we decide what we want to do with our lives, where we're going to go, how we're going to do it. And I resonated most with his theory. So getting right into it, it probably reads a little funny, but it really did feel like the Army controlled my destiny as a child. So my father was in the Army, and here on the left, you can see these are the first 15 years of my life. These are all the places that I lived. And those decisions, of course, were made by when the Army says go, you go. So there was a lot of transition. That was a huge part of my growing up experience, and it had its good and its bad. So on the right, you can see some of my educational transitions and where I was at different points in my schooling, and that did have a huge effect on just my ability to track with other students, to feel like I was behind or ahead. Sometimes I would move and I'd be in a class that, the last school I was at, they didn't do that until 7th grade, but now I'm behind, or sometimes I'd be ahead and duplicating classes that I'd already taken. So it could be a challenge. It was rough at times, but one of the great things about living in all those places and just being a part of all these different environments was I really did make good friends everywhere I went, and I'm so grateful for that as an adult. Just having the experience of meeting new people, of really being in a place where I had to make friends. I wasn't going to survive, and I had to do it quickly, which also kind of went into the different characteristics that I developed growing up as an Army kid, and becoming very adaptable, very flexible in my expectations, and just kind of my ability to just kind of go with the flow. I didn't always want to, but I certainly learned how to do it. And then compassion and empathy were a huge part of that. When you have to move all the time, and you have to make friends that fast, you really start to understand some of the hardships of other people, and really getting a feel for what it is to be the new kid, how hard that is. It just makes you, hopefully makes you want to just to be a kinder person. And I think that God really used all of those transitions in my life to develop that in me, and that kind of was just foundational in my personality. Some of the bad, as far as the Army controlling my destiny, I did experience clinical depression, probably from about the ages of 15 to 22. So kind of most of high school through most of college, which is sometimes, still feels like an open wound for me. But again, it's one of those things that I have days where I wish it was not a part of my story, but I have other days where I'm so grateful that I know what that feels like, especially working towards a counseling degree and being in those dark spaces with people is I do know what it's like to be there. I do know exactly how it feels. And so, like most people's childhood experiences, they were good and bad. And this just kind of gives you a brief picture of how transient my childhood was, and really what was born out of that, aside from what I already shared, was kind of this constant search for stability and wanting to feel secure and like I was standing on steady ground, which, as we'll see, really kind of spoke into my career hunt. So this gives you another picture of my career history. So when I graduated college, I really was looking for something. I was looking for something great. I thought I was going to find my dream job. I thought it was going to be easy. It wasn't, and I did not find my dream job, but I did get a lot of interesting experience. So as you can see here in the circles are all the different jobs I had and the amount of time that I had them for. And then underneath is who I worked for, and then underneath that is just kind of a little bit of my feelings, I guess, about those jobs. So the beginning of my my career journey was a little frenetic, kind of jumped from job to job to job. And it's funny, this last job, the regional case manager, that's the one I had the longest at that point, and it's the one I hated the most. And so looking farther past that, this is my career history continued, and I'm still looking for that special something. I did a couple of other jobs, some of them longer than others. Really what kind of stuck the most was this one in the middle, the advocate position with the Army. That was a job that I actually felt passionate about. I was working with wounded warriors. I was helping them through these really difficult transitions. A lot of them were wounded, and it just spoke to that piece of me that was very, very nurturing, very empathetic, and that was probably the closest I had come in the 6 years prior to finding something that I felt I fit in. And then eventually I decided that was not for me, that I didn't really want to stay with the government. The government can be a difficult environment. And so I moved to Colorado, and that was about 2 years ago, and that was to work for a nonprofit doing other types of work with wounded warriors. And that also spoke to that empathetic piece of me that wanted to be helping people, wanted to be engaging with them in some of these more stressful parts of life. And then I just left that job about 2 months ago. And so now I'm just in school doing practicum with everybody else. And I don't know what this season will look like, thus the question mark. There might be another holdover job during this time as I complete my degree. But really what I'm looking forward to at this point is graduation. And then everything is kind of a big question mark after that. So in going through this, the assessments that I did the ones, of course, that we did in this class, but I also have done a couple of different ones over the years, and those are all listed out here on this tree. I love assessments. I know some people have really strong feelings about them, that they do not like them, feel like assessments put people in boxes, but for me personally, I found that taking these kinds of tests helped me to better understand myself. I had a lot of affirmation as I grew up that I had skills and gifts in counseling in this area of life, but I just had a lot of trouble trusting what I thought I knew about myself. So taking these types of assessments really helped me to it helped bring more clarity, more explanation into what I thought was true about me. And so I've just shared some of those here. The first one, the one I probably took at the youngest age, was actually the Myers-Briggs test. And every time I've taken it since then, and I have taken it a few times, is INFJ. I've always come out as INFJ, and I think it is probably one of the most accurate depictions of my personality. So I do go back to it quite frequently. They say INFJs are the most rare type. I have no idea if that's true, but it does sometimes ring true when I feel really misunderstood or like I can't explain myself to other people. The strong inventory and Cooter assessments, the two things that really came out of that were the social and artistic categories. And I think those also ring very true, especially social. That's been, that definitely resonates probably for most of my life in wanting to help people, wanting to be with them, to have that empathic presence. One of the most surprising things, though, that came out on the strong inventory was the spirituality and clergy interest area came out as one of my top interest areas. And when I had originally applied and got accepted into this MAC program, I thought, I'm not going to be a Christian counselor. I'm just going to be a counselor that's a Christian. And over the year and a half that we've been in school, I have started to rethink that. I do think that there's a part of my personality that really wants to engage with people on that spiritual level. And so that's something that I'm kind of rethinking. And I have plenty of time, but it is a piece that, I think is a pretty strong inclination in me. So we'll have to see where that goes. One of the other assessments that I put on here is Gallup Strengths Finder. I don't know if everyone's familiar with that, but it gives you your top 5 themes out of, I think, about 30 to 40 themes. And so really what it does, it just provides reports that kind of give you activities or behaviors that might be true of you because of these strengths, as they call them. So my top ones are input and empathy. And I always thought these were kind of an interesting mix. Input is really wanting to know more, just kind of that researcher, and the empathy, we all know what that is, but I do think that they actually could mesh really well in the counseling profession, that just wanting just that endless curiosity to have about people, and also so it doesn't come off in a voyeuristic way, the empathy, just wanting to know more about them, but to be present with them in their pain. So these are the assessments that I've taken, and I think that they've really helped me clarify that counseling is definitely, the way that I want to go. Not totally sure what form that'll take. That's still a little bit up in the air, but I do think this is where my passions lie. So kind of going back to a learning theory, I just put out here, the stages of decision making on the left. And this is straight from our textbook. But then on the right, I put what my own kind of career journey might have looked like if someone had gone through a learning theory with me. So, you can read these here, but really what I got from it was that if I had sought out a career counselor that was using this theory in particular, that it might, what makes sense to me now as I look at my career journey, that some of it might have made sense a lot sooner, and I might have applied to graduate school sooner. But it's impossible to know that. Either way, I do think that this theory just really takes into account just the whole person, just everything that we think, the people that we know, the assessments that we take, the experiences we've had, and really just has a way of guiding them so that, those things can make sense. And it also gives them an opportunity, though, in any of these stages, if things don't make sense, they can go back to a different stage and they can start again. And I think the value of that is just, it really takes the pressure off of people to make a decision. And personally, I put a lot of pressure on myself to try and figure out my career trajectory when I was like 23. So I think if I were going to, do any sort of career counseling with a client, this is what I would start with, is to do a learning theory and get get to know my client, really allow them to get to know themselves, and then, just have these fruitful discussions they could um, where they could kind of connect the dots in their own life. So on that note, kind of looking into my own future, that big question mark. Short term, I definitely want to graduate from this program, hopefully attain licensure. Even though it does take 2 years, I think it's a really worthwhile pursuit. It opens up a lot of job opportunities. There's something called the Christian Counseling Educational Foundation, CCEF, and they offer different certifications for people in the biblical counseling field, and that's something that I've been interested in before, and uh, my interest is kind of growing again. And then on a more personal level, just to invest in a faith community that's so important for me, both personally and professionally. And then long term, these are the different areas, but I really do want to find my niche in counseling, and just feel like I'm operating out of my strengths. And then I just want to leave you guys with this one thought. As most of us are in practicum and, looking towards the future, but also looking behind us at what we've done, I found this quote to be very encouraging, as I'm not someone who likes to fail at all. And, learning requires failing in some regard. And so I will just leave you with this. Anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. Thanks so much, you guys.